Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Kalen's Lens. Thank you for joining me so far, and thank you for all the advice and feedback that you guys have given to me, including the amount of times looking back in the episodes I've said the words like and I think. I am just so grateful to every single person that has provided me the feedback, but also has been supporting me. And I just wanted to say for any new listeners out there, please hit that follow button or subscribe button on whatever platform you are listening to. It would mean the absolute world to me. Today's episode is centered around our careers, education, money, and how to actually survive student life whilst having incredibly big dreams. Today's guest is someone who has actually inspired me throughout this entire academic year, but they may not realize that they actually have. Not just because of what she's actually achieved, but because of how grounded and intentional she is about every decision that she makes. Abbie is a penultimate year law student at Queen Mary. She was our inspiring Solicitor Brand Ambassador. She was an Access Akin participant, a LEAP mentee, and alongside all of that, she has been a swimming instructor, which I absolutely love because it reminds us that law students do not come in one mould. Abbie's story is something that I feel would resonate with a lot of home students compared to our international counterparts. And that is when you are a home student, for a lot of us, just to be able to get by, we have to work alongside our degrees. We're both also social welfare benefits form filling advisors, which was the first time I actually even ever saw Abbie. And whilst we've worked in similar spaces, I think that today's conversation is going to be powerful about money, about pressure, about ambition, about it all. So, Abbie, thank you so much for being on Kalen's Lens. It's really nice to have you here and finally sit down with you for this first conversation. To start us off, how has life been for you recently?
Hey, Kalen, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this today. Life recently for me has been extremely busy. It's been fun. I've been trying to make time for myself, but it has been extremely busy. And I'm trying to find ways to try and sort that out for myself, to try and give myself back some time, some free time for myself.
Do you think because of it being in semester B that that is a lot of the reason, or is it because there's a lot of things outside of uni that have kind of had to take center stage that's made your life busier in a way?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with the latter option. So there's always external things that I'm doing that take up a lot of my time. So, for instance, this semester I've got three things at the Legal Advice Centre. I've got my part-time job that I'm doing, and I've got all these applications that I'm trying to get done as well. So, while I want to prioritize my university degree, unfortunately, I'm just sort of being pulled apart by different strings. There's not really a whole lot I can do to cut off some of these obligations and commitments. And I wouldn't want to. I do like being busy, but sometimes I do wish that I wouldn't spread myself so thin so that it doesn't cause me as much stress on trying to prioritize on what I actually want to.
I believe that is the reality for so many law students, and that so much of our lives are being picked apart because it's like we're trying to get to this one pinnacle place of that solicitorship, that training contract, or that vacation scheme. And it's like
Yeah.
the amount of things that we have to do to get to that place is just astronomical. And it's the case that we aren't taught that. We aren't taught what we actually need to get to that position. And so, for anyone that's listening who thinks that that is not the reality of a uni life, the difference is that is actually the case. That is actually what uni life is. Abbie's story is what uni life has been about for so many of us. And for anyone that's listening, Abbie, what's one thing that you'd hope that they may take away from your insights or this episode?
I think the main thing I'd like them to take away is that not everything needs to be done to your absolute best. I think that if there's something that you want to do or that you think you might enjoy, then absolutely go for it. That's why I do so many different things outside of university because I do enjoy them and I do want to do them. But I also don't need to do all of them perfectly. And I also don't need to give all of them all of my time and attention when I'm not doing them. I don't need them to be on my mind when I'm not doing them, I guess. So I think that's what I'd like them to take away, just that perfectionism that I think nearly all law students seek doesn't need to be in absolutely everything that you do. Put it towards the things that actually count and just enjoy and do your best at what you can.
You say that so perfectly because it's the reality of just so many of us is that perfectionism. It's
Yeah,
the case
definitely.
that we have to be perfect in everything that we do. And I think it's a thing to train your mind and train that mechanism that makes you think that to change it to be excellent. It's about being excellent at all the things that you do. You don't have to be perfect. You
Definitely, yeah.
have to be excellent about I want to be excellent on my fitness journey and getting healthier, wanting to just be excellent. And I think excellence should be the standard and not perfectionism that we all set ourselves. And I think your story and the lessons from that, even those small words, is really pinnacle for people to hear because I believe in that the case that for a lot of us it's hard. We all get
Definitely.
that sort of imposter syndrome and that scared feeling of are we good enough? Are we not good enough? And I believe that just by being excellent,
Definitely, I agree. And I think the reason that so many of law students and just us in general, it's the perfectionism comes from somewhere. For me, it comes from the academic performance in basically everything that I've ever done. I've always wanted to be top academically. I've always gone for anything extracurricular that was academic. And getting that top mark meant everything to me. And if I didn't, that was it sort of hurt me. Like that's what my whole character was built upon. It was getting these top marks. It was being the smart person. It was being the person that everybody turns for the answers to. So sort of teaching myself that I don't need to be that person. I think most things in law are capped or barred behind some sort of grade requirement. And while I understand that, I think it does force people to realize, oh, they need to be perfect in this. So, a lot of the training contracts are barred behind a 2-1. And while to some people that might not be perfectionism, as it's not a first, to some people that might be, and that might be so difficult for them to get. And I think it's just really trying to realize that there's so much more beyond getting the top marks, getting the top grades and everything. For example, I definitely didn't do as well in EU law as what I did in contract law last year, but my overall I was happy with, and that's fine. So at the time, EU hurt me because I knew that I didn't do well, but it's not about that because it's the overall journey, it's the overall I've done well. I know that I can get to the next step. And I think that that's something my mum has definitely tried to bring up onto me is you only need to get to the next step. So, while my A level stressed me out to hell, they're done now. I got what I needed and I'm on to that next step. I don't think about them anymore. The only time I do is when I input them into application forms. So once the degree's done and I'm on to my training contract, hopefully the degree will have been my next step. And then I won't think about it until it comes up again, until I need it. So I think removing perfectionism, as you say, to excellence and realizing that you need to be good enough and you need to try enough to get to that next step is is the standard rather than perfectionism.
and I think for the listeners, just hearing that story, I relate so much to everything you've kind of just said because I was that student as well. I was the one that was going through my A levels, being, I need to get the top grades, I need to get three A stars, and it's life or death if I don't get three A stars. And
Definitely.
don't get me wrong, when I got my results and I seen two A stars and an A, and the A being in law, my reaction was, what have I actually done wrong here? And being 10 marks away, I was like, this is like the worst thing that could ever have happened to me. But when I change it and I change my mindset and I flip it and I'm like, someone would actually die to have what I have. Someone would actually kill to be in the position that I'm in, to be going and moving 2 hours away to London, moving on a different journey. And even just hearing you say, like, being the student that people would always turn to for answers, people would always copy off you in like GCSE seasons, I presume. Like, that story is just so similar. It's
Yeah,
so similar. And I believe for so many students as well, hearing that it's not about perfectionism. is all about excellence, and that changing your mindset and changing the way that you think is the key to unlocking so much more. And truly, truly believe, had you not have changed the way that you think, you wouldn't be doing all the things that you are doing and smashing everything that you are doing without that one subtle change and the influence from your parents.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always struggled with my mental health, for example, and you know, that level of perfectionism that had on myself, that definitely impacted it. My A levels, and how you put it, it was sort of a live or die sort of situation if I didn't get those grades. That's exactly how I felt. Every time I'd receive a, a well, a bad mark, to me, a bad mark, um, it would be the end of the world. I would have left for the rest of the day. During my freeze, I would have gone on a walk. I would have hidden away somewhere in a corner and gotten really upset. And I just think that it's a real shame that that's how I viewed myself at that time. But I think coming into uni, I sort of realized how much more difficult this was going to be. It wasn't going to be, oh, I can rely on my intelligence, I can rely on my memory, I can rely on this. I can't do that here. I do genuinely need to put in the effort, and I do actually need to get involved in different things. So making sure that that is my mindset now, to not make myself go crazy, is the only way I think I can cope, to be honest.
Just prioritizing yourself is the essence, I think. I just being able to do all the things that you do because you do a lot. Like I look at
Yeah.
myself and I look at the amount that you do, and you're doing a lot. You're balancing all these different commitments. You were an aspiring solicitors thrown into the mix as the brand ambassador as well, on top of everything you're doing right now. And it's just like a whoa, like making sure to prioritize myself,
Hmm.
prioritize my mental health, because I also believe and truly believe that mental health is something that is still stigmatized today. Nobody
Yeah.
really wants to have the conversations at university, especially about mental health and how we're all actually feeling. And even looking back at A levels, nobody really wanted to have those conversations with us. I don't remember having one conversation with a teacher about mental health. I knew that there was mental health professionals, but I didn't know that it existed. And it's just realizing who you are and prioritizing yourself as number one is key.
I mean, I was quite lucky. I had a really good time at sixth form, and I had teachers that genuinely were there for me, and I knew that I could go and speak to, and I did on multiple occasions, and that definitely helped. I think mental health for me has always been a big part of my journey. I've been struggling since primary school age, so 10, 11. And then obviously as the years go on, and the perfectionism pressure, I guess, is like what I like to call it, just got to me, and it made it even worse. And as you get older, you sort of realize there's something wrong with me, but I actually don't know what it is. And then I started doing counseling and therapy and got to the sort of root of the issue. And while I don't think it can be fixed, I can definitely understand more of why the way I am, and make conscious choices to not be like that. So, for example, I know that a lot of it is coming from the academic sort of perfectionism viewpoint. So, for me to not get like that anymore, that really helps me feel a lot calmer. And, and I agree. I feel like at university, it's still really not spoken about enough. I was applying to placements just the other day, and in the reasonable adjustment section, I was mentioning, oh, I struggle with this, and I would appreciate this adjustment if possible. But I had people saying to me, oh, no, I wouldn't put that in there because, no one really needs to know that that's what you suffer with. But it's actually a big part of me. It's actually been something that as I said, I've dealt with since about 10, 11, age 10, 11. So why would I not? Why would I not seek help for the things that people can offer help for? So it's definitely still stigmatized. And I think everyone believes now, because of the access to social media, that there's something mental health related that they also suffer with. And while I don't disagree with that at all, I think it's completely different to be feeling down one day and to someone like me to know that that's not how it feels like when you live with it every single day. So I just wish that it was still more open, more accepting, and people would realize actually how it feels rather than just trying to relate based off of their own beliefs and situations, because it's different for everybody.
I'm just taken aback because the way that you articulated the real truth of the actual journey, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm having such a bad day, and like playing the sort of that is they've got mental health issues or they've got a mental health problem going on in their life on that day, but then every other day is absolutely fine. But the truth is it's an everyday struggle. It's an
Yeah.
everyday of trying to deal with what I refer to as my bitch voice in my head that's kind of telling me all these bad things are going to happen. Like, if you leave that door, everyone's going to make fun of you. You're going to be judged. If you leave with that hairstyle, everyone's going to judge you. And having that sort of voice combat and at you every single day is
Mm.
challenging. It's tough. And I'm looking at you now. I think you're such a role model for so many people because it's like you are the definition of I have been through a lot. I have been through a lot since the age of 10, but look at where I'm at now. And I'm evidence of you can go through something really, really bad, still deal with it today, and
Yeah.
not let it affect you in such a big way. And I think that is props to you, props to your
Thank you.
character. And I think it should be something that you should celebrate and be proud of because, like you said, and like we've said, not a lot of people want to be open and discuss it.
No, I think at the root of it, it's just a lack of knowledge, and I'm not sure if it's because of people being scared of it and not wanting to know, or just, yeah, just a general lack of knowledge. I mean, for example, I know I struggle with panic attacks. I know a lot of people will, and for me, they don't get triggered by anything specific. I will get them randomly, and they are painful, but um, there's people that I've spoken to about them before, and they don't really understand what they are. And after they've done some research, they do. And I think that's all it takes sometimes, is to just sort of realize, actually, I don't need to know exactly what it is that I can do to help, but just understanding a little bit more on what someone's going through, they'd probably actually appreciate that quite a bit. I think people that have got mental health issues know that no one is going to be able to fix it for them, or at least that's how I view it. No one is going to be able to shut off what I think and what I do, but if someone is not going to judge me for it, if someone is going to sort of understand how it is that I'm feeling and be there, even if to them they think that's not a lot, that matters a lot to me. So I think just having some general empathy and just willingness to understand what people are going through would change a lot.
A willingness to understand is just everything. I truly, truly think you've like hit the nail on the head because it is just the case that a lot of people aren't empathetic, and I think we live in a world right now where we're all very much so consumed, as we should be, and as rightly so, with ourselves and ourselves are the priority. But the truth is maybe you need to consider other people, consider what other people might be going through. And I know in my time and my situations when I'm in, I do look back on some situations and I'm like, shit, maybe I should have thought, maybe they're going through something, maybe they've had a hard day, and use that as a sort of building exercise in my brain to actually change the way that I think because a lot of us are going through things and we don't want to be open, but it's about understanding that everyone goes through things and it's okay to actually go through them. It's okay to feel and it's
Yeah,
okay to have those feelings too. And I know you touched on it briefly about counseling and therapy. Have there been
yeah.
any tools including those that you have used to help you sort of navigate your sort of mental health journey?
For me specifically, I really struggle with getting overwhelmed with things. So as I'm sure is clear by now, I do a lot of different things. I have a lot of different commitments, and nothing on my list is over prioritized by something else, because to me it's all important and should all be prioritized. And so I remember one specific session I had, it was sort of, I think it was an ADHD type tool that we sort of switched for my personal needs. So it's kind of like a brain dump, I guess. You put all of your things that you want to get done on your to-do list down. Uh, I like to categorize mine. So, for example, I'll put emails down, I'll put aspiring solicitors down, university, etc. And then from each of those separate categories, I'll pick the one that's the most important. And that could be the one that I feel is important by time, or the one that I just feel I want to get done. So all of those ones that I've highlighted will get put into a separate sheet. And I like to use Notion for this actually. I haven't found it very useful for taking notes, but I really do like their to-do list system. So I'll make different pages for all the different categories and then just have an overall one for the day. And then all of those highlighted ones, as I said, go into that. And that's what I focus on for the day. And I don't open the overall brain dump one again. So then at least I know something from every category has gotten done, because that's the only way I'm ever going to feel comfortable with prioritizing, because everything to me is important. I think that's probably the biggest tool that I've found helps me in my everyday sort of life.
You've just given one of the biggest tips that I truly, truly want the listeners to take is brain dump. Get it all out, get it on the open, and really plan. I think planning is
Yeah,
so key. And planning it based on categories, planning it based on even, let's say you're not doing so many different commitments in your lives as a listener, but planning it based on family or relationships or personal and what you actually want to get out of the world, and having that system that is suiting you is everything. Like even just hearing about Notion and talking about the tool, like I'm exactly like you. Like I love Notion to the core of writing my to-do lists, and I do not
yeah,
ever want to take notes on the app because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just so much more of a OneNote kind of guy. But it's
yeah,
having those sort of systems in place that are suited for you, that completely help your life and completely just change the trajectory of where your life is actually going to go in a way. And I think also
yeah,
thinking about it, it's more so planning and figuring that out for who you are.
definitely. Because no one, what I say for myself, I know works for what I stress about and what is important to me. So, for example, if spending time on going to the gym, for example, is one of your biggest priorities, that's not going to be on my list, because I walk an hour every day to the train station and back. So that is my exercise. But I know some people get a lot out of having that sort of de-stress time at the gym. So, you have to figure out, one, what is important to you, and two, the way your brain works, to figure out an actual system that works for you. I'm a visual person, so having those categories and having those ones highlighted is what works for me. But if, for example, you like a handwritten to-do list, or maybe you like listening to things instead, it's just figuring out, I think, the way that your brain works best, and finding a tool that works for you. And you can even just start on Google, going, productive tools for a visual learner, and see what it gives you, and just try it out and see what works best. And I think, for example, in aspiring solicitors, I remember we touched upon this. One of the coaches, she said that law is a competitive world, even for you guys that are not fully in it yet. So why would you not help each other out and figure out what it is that works for you guys? If one of you's done really well in an assessment center, for example, and how you got through that system, pass it on to someone and help them out. I feel that even at our stage, it's too competitive, and we just need to sort of realize that everyone needs to help each other out just a little bit more. So, I'll always tell people, this is how I do it and this is how it works for me. Give it a go. I hope it works for you. But obviously, if not, try something else, because there's no benefit to you keeping information to yourself like that, in my opinion.
Yes, like I completely agree, and I get that because I feel in uni everyone's pretty much in a gatekeeping sort of mindset. Like I don't want to share, I don't want to help you in a way. And it's kind of really just hard to deal with because we should all be open. We should all want to help each other. We all should want to uplift each other and give each other tools that can make our lives successful. Because at the end of the day, we all have one life, and it's what you do with that life that is ultimately going to determine the path that you live. And if you're not
Yeah,
willing to help me get along that journey, then what's the point? Like, what is the point of life? And even just thinking about it as well, and I'm looking back on sort of myself and being, as you know, a type A sort of person, planning and having my colourful sort of Google Calendar that tells me when I'm gonna do a tutorial prep, like having those strategies
me too.
allows you to just allows us to just do so much more. And I think it's
Yeah,
if I didn't learn that from people sharing the tools that help them, I wouldn't be doing it and I wouldn't be doing so much more as well with my time.
yeah, I completely agree. For example, in my first year, I was taking notes on every lecture and every tutorial on separate documents, and I found that it was just too much for me going through one note to this note to that note to figure out what I wanted to say in class. And I spoke to a couple of people about it, and one of my friends suggested just one continuous Google Doc that had a table of contents at the start. So I could just go through that, quickly find what I wanted to go to. And it's just one long document for lectures and one long document for tutorials. And I found that it's helped me so much this year.
I am just taken aback because it's that how that one conversation for you changed your outlook and the way that you approach everything in regards to your notes. And even just thinking, just that one conversation is key. If you didn't have that
Yeah.
conversation, you'd kind of still be doing it the same way that you've been doing it, and it would be driving you insane. It would also be
Yeah.
wasting so much of your time. And it's just the case of we just need to share more, be open about your mental health and be open about the conversations about how you're actually feeling, but also be open about tips and tricks to help us get along in life, help us create journeys and create the life that we want to live and the life that we feel we want to live. And as well, just thinking as well, like you're now in your penultimate year and realizing that moment and that shift, which I just think is crazy to say that it's now well over halfway through that year.
I know.
When you look back on your career and on your journey so far, what was it that had actually drew you to law as a degree, but also as a career to become a solicitor?
Yeah. I studied business at GCSE and I loved it. I don't know if it was because it just clicked in my head, if it was the math side of it, if it was the analysis point and relating it to a case study. I'm not sure, but it was my favorite thing. I absolutely loved it. And then I decided to do it at A level. And I did law at A level as well. So I found that business became a little bit too easy. I'm not sure if it's because I'd done it at GCSE, but it just all made sense to me in my head. So I kind of lost interest in it slightly as a subject to study. And I was drawn more to law because I found it more challenging. I found it similar in certain ways to business, where we'd have a case study to apply the law to. But yeah, it was just more challenging. And I was originally going to do an accounting degree apprenticeship. I had that lined up
Oh
as an offer,
wow.
but I ended up declining it because I went there for a day and I realized that actually I want something that's more people based, and that could be because of my part-time role. I enjoy being with people. I'm quite an outgoing person. I'm quite talkative. I like being around people. So I think I started looking at law more, and I realized actually it gives the sort of analysis and application part of the business world that I liked. Getting a client or getting a case and going, oh, what can I do here? Or what would be their best approach to take, and what advice can I give them? But it was just a more challenging world compared to the business and financial world, I would say. But that's obviously just me. That could be completely the other way around for some people, but that's how I ended up deciding law at uni. Um, and I actually got into Queen Mary through clearing, so my grades were completely fine. I would have been into uni either way, but I didn't apply to law originally. I applied to a business and finance degree, and I realized after going to that internship, that work experience, that it wasn't for me. And I actually did really, really like law, but I still wanted a business side to it. And having spoken to careers advisors, I realized that actually business is so involved in it anyway. So I called up Queen Mary on the day and I asked them if they had any spots left in law, and they did. So that's how I got into it.
Your journey is just so, like the start of your journey is just so similar. I also studied business and law as well, and just hearing like the whole sort of the way that you kind of approached it, I feel like you approached it with more of like a strategy in a way. Is that right
Yeah,
to say? Because it
yeah,
was more of a
definitely.
case of, you know, I really enjoyed this at GCSE, and now I've got an A level where I can continue it, which is great. But then I'm going to insert this other thing that is giving me a fuel and desire. And it's just the case that, oh my God, I absolutely love them. And it wasn't until that one conversation with the careers advisor that you realize, you know what? Law is actually a lot more business based than people think because
Yeah,
everyone's like, oh my God, it's just criminal crimes, blah, 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 blah. But it's actually a lot more business focused with corporate law or tax or M&As. And having that one discussion and that one day at that internship completely changed your life. Is that right?
yeah. For me, I have no one that's come from a professional background, for example. So I had no one to turn to except Google, except the like I think it was called lawcareers.net at the time, and this careers advisor, because no one could tell me. No one could tell me whether law was business related. No one could give me examples of what it might be like. Um, yeah, it was just really difficult. But having that one conversation, I sort of realized, oh, actually, I can combine these two different things that I really enjoy. Um, and I can actually still get the challenge out of it that I like. And I think now, having done obviously internships and being in that corporate world a little bit more, it is actually fascinating. And I think, in a way, just really cool. I love being able to see things on the news or things that people mention, go, oh, well, I know this case about this, or I know the law about this from studies and other things that I've been involved in.
That is just incredible. The way that you've just articulated that, sort of the way that that conversation has impacted you, and it took you on a journey, and it's a journey at the end of the day. Law is a journey, and I feel a lot of people fail to understand that it's a journey and that it's so many different building blocks. It's you attending those internships, it's you attending those insight days and building your career. It's a journey and it's okay to go on that journey. There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. But also thinking about your journey, one thing that when I was doing my research was, which took me by surprise, is your part-time job of a swimming instructor, because I feel like that is just the most random, no offense, but just the most random job of a law student. Like I obviously would expect like retail or whatever, but a swimming instructor, what has that been like as a swimming instructor? Like what does it entail? What is it? Because it's completely new to me and probably new to so many of my listeners as even like a job.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great job. I really love it. I think that you can get so much out of it if you put the same amount of effort in. I've been a swimming instructor since I was 16. That's when I qualified. But I had some previous experience as a instructor's assistant since about 14. So I would have been supervised while I was in the water helping. Um, and I've always loved swimming. I've been swimming since I was about 3 years old, and it's just I've just loved the water. I always have. It just gives me that sort of calmness of maybe what relaxing on a beach does for some people, or going to the gym, but being in the water sort of clears my mind. And I think that probably is the only time that I have a clear mind. I just absolutely love it. But for the job, I think it's great. I get to do as many hours as I want, especially in the role that I'm at now. I'm at a local leisure centre. So there's always obviously shifts that are needing to be covered if people are off sick or for any other reason. There's always a chance to do more qualifications. There's always something to do and help out with. So I do love it there. That's not where I started. I started at a privately owned business. And I think for me, while I enjoyed the actual job that I was doing, so obviously being there for those swimmers that are beginners, I teach up to advanced levels in competitive swimming, but the beginners are what I enjoy to do because so many of them are frightened, so many of them want to be better at swimming. And for me, just seeing them have that one lesson where they realize they can do it or that they've gotten better at something is so sweet. And it really does make you feel like you've had a difference, which is sort of the main thing to me. I like to feel like I've helped people. I'm really done some my Wednesday shift who really struggles with swimming on their back, and we've done a lot of practice with it. And by the end of the lesson, they were doing fairly decent swimming on their back to one side of the pool, and they were so excited and they were shouting to their parents saying, "Look, I've done this." And it's just so sweet to feel like you've had a direct impact on something, and especially something that is to me so important. It's a life skill, and you know, it's something that everyone, in my opinion, should learn. And I'm really interested in first aid and stuff like that too. So having that sort of swimming world and life saving world, it's for me sort of an escape from everything else that I do. I know that I enjoy it. I know that I'm good at what I do. And being around the water and being in that job sort of gives me that calm escape, I guess, that like I said, other people would get from going to the gym or else. But it's a great job. I really do love it.
Wow. I'm just taken aback because I feel the passion. I feel
Yeah,
the energy that the job gives you because not only does it give you something personally, it allows you to just have that mental sort of clarity break, but also a break from reality and a way of life and law and everything coming at you. It's also a really good feeling inside that you're able
definitely.
to help anyone from advanced level to beginners, and hearing that story of that child swimming backstroke and figuring out how to do it and being so confident and then excited to tell their parents. I just feel I feel the energy and I feel the passion, but I also feel like it's a skill to have that,
Yeah.
and it's a skill to show the sort of attributes of a character like yourself. If there is one skill in terms of the role that you're in right now that you've kind of learned that law doesn't teach you or your degree doesn't teach you, what would that skill be?
Ooh, I would probably have to say patience, to be honest. I think growing up, I wasn't a very patient person. And not that I would get angry with people, but I would get sort of more angry with myself in that I wouldn't give myself patience. So I don't know, if I didn't understand something in class, if and I didn't get it first try, I'd be like, oh, can't do it. I'm not doing it anymore if I didn't get it first try. And I didn't have that patience with myself. And I think having swimmers that sort of are either really, really scared and nervous of the water or just really just need that extra time to get something, it sort of taught me that actually it really it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get somewhere. And I think that can be directly related to law, like everyone's sort of, oh, I need to get a training contract in my penultimate year, where I am now. But actually, the roles are open to graduates and the roles are open to career changers and people from any walks of life. So you need to have patience with yourself that you will get there, even if it's not today or, this year. And I think that's definitely something the job has taught me. I am a lot more patient with myself now, seeing other people go through, genuine fear of water and needing that extra time and support, and realizing that actually I should probably give that to myself in my academic life. And yeah, it's taught me a lot, but I think that's the one biggest skill that I'd take away from it.
Patience. Patience
Patience.
is key. And I feel the sort of just relief. I really want the listeners to just take a deep breath, to just breathe, because patience, just be patient with yourself, patient with the time. And as Abbie said, everyone's fighting for a training contract during penultimate year. Everyone's fighting for the position that they want or the career that they want. But just have patience. Patience that if this is the journey for you, this is the career for you, it's going to happen. It will happen. You just got to have patience. And without patience, you won't get far in
Yeah.
anything you do because you're going to be riled up all the time. Like Abbie was in her journey, she got riled up at school when things weren't going right. But learning the key skill of patience really changes one's journey. And it's just it's just life changing. Hearing your
Yeah.
story and just hearing patience. I'm just like, whoa, maybe I just need to adopt that. I'm writing it and I'm just like, maybe I need to adopt patience and being patient with myself and my loved ones, but most importantly, me.
Yeah, and I think people don't I think people would think it's an odd answer to have because, if you go on LinkedIn, for example, and you type in your part-time role and it comes up with what skills did you learn, patience is not going to be that skill that is what you get out of it. It might be communication skills or customer relationships, things like that. But actually, I think people need to realize that what might seem simple and what might you've been taught at ages 4 and below at school, actually you still need to learn and still practice as you get older, because not everyone is patient, not everyone can be. I'm definitely not with myself a lot of the time, but actually, like we mentioned, everyone will get there. So even just realizing that sometimes what you're getting out of things isn't what you necessarily think you should. So even if you thought, oh, maybe she's going to say time management because she's been able to practice part-time her part-time role alongside her studies, but actually patience is probably more important to me, and that's probably not what I imagine a lot of the listeners had in their mind when they first heard that question.
Yeah, no, because I certainly did not have patience. I don't even think patience was even in the equilibrium, to be honest. Even hearing it, I'm just like, whoa. And then when you said it, I'm like, whoa. Like that is actually the true essence. You've got to be patient if you're dealing with beginners who are
Yeah.
probably riled up that they can't do it. You've got to be patient with the advanced people who are probably just wanting to keep going, 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 but they actually need to take a step back. But you've also got to be patient in your law degree and in your career because at the end of the day, though the part-time job isn't the end goal, it's a way that shapes you in meaningful ways. And that is the core that has given you throughout your career. It's given you during your modules. It's given you during everything that you do is patience. And I'm just like, whoa, I actually just need to be patient.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's like, oh, I just get goosebumps hearing about it. So for the listeners out there, be patient. Be patient with where you are. Be patient with the journey that you're on. Be patient with everything. Be patient with your family. Patience is key. And that is just one of the biggest lessons I want people, listeners to take away from the episode. It's just patience because, yeah, I'm just speechless by it. I'm just speechless that it wasn't even a skill that I had even considered. I didn't even think of it. But I know you mentioned time management, and
Yeah.
I just have to go back to it because that was the first thing that I thought of, to be honest,
Really? Okay.
was time management. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on a work-life balance? Like, I just want to ask the question, like, what is your thoughts on the topic?
I mean, I think it's an ideal for everybody. Obviously, I don't think it, unless being busy all the time
Do you?
is your thing. But I would love a work life balance. I think for me, possibly with the experiences that I've grown up with, struggling with mental health, etc., I've realized that actually I do want to enjoy my time. I do want to enjoy my life and the people that I'm around and what I want to do. And I do set aside time for that. So, friends that I've got from school, friends that I've got from sixth form, we have designated times that we call every week because that's important to me. And while it might be an hour or two that I could have done a bit of reading, it's actually an hour or two that I've had a lot of fun with my friends with, and that's important to me. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's quite a big topic now. People are going to be finding law firms with the latest start times and the earliest finish times, seeing which one they can get the less of a working day from. But I actually think that it's not so much about the amount that you work, but what you're doing with the hours outside of that. So my days are usually quite busy. Um, but if any free time I do get, I will spend that with my family or with friends doing what I want to do. And, you know, what I need to get done will get done because realistically, there is enough time for me to do it. But spending time also with others is important to me. So just making sure that, I have that hour or that 2 hours to call someone, just catch up, play some games, do whatever. It's just nice to have, and that's what my ideal would be.
I think it does change the way that I slightly feel about it because
Yeah.
I feel like we're in two different ends of the spectrum, to be honest.
Okay.
I am very much more a work-life alignment, more so than a work-life balance, so to speak,
Okay.
because the way that I kind of view it is my career is number one to me right now, and everything else kind of falls into that. And it's like sometimes there
Okay.
are weeks or days in the week where I can't call my mum or dad. There are sometimes moments in my life where I can't go for that meal with that friend because I'm working, or I can't stay up late because fundamentally it's going to affect my sleep and it's going to affect the rest of my work. And I think it's all in alignment because it's all sort of aligning to that one
Mm.
goal. And I know I'm a bit of a sort of, let's say, workaholic. I get up at 4:30 and I don't go to bed till
Oh.
9. And I'm just like, that's my life. And I love it. But I think the real essence that I want the listeners to get is that's okay for me, but it doesn't have to be okay for you. Hearing
Yeah.
Abbie's story of in Abby's life of where she just is able to do everything that she does for her career, her roles, but also finds that time to speak with her home friends, speak with her uni friends, go out, have fun, whatever that is for her, she manages to do that. And I think we all have different
Definitely.
paths and different lenses, so to speak, of how we
Yeah.
want to view our lives. And I think for the listeners, you shouldn't be ashamed to feel that the way that you're living your life is completely different to somebody else's because it's their life and ultimately it's how they want to live it.
Yeah. I had a tutor in first year, who I remember speaking to on a similar topic about time management and having enough time to get my reading done, for example. And they actually said to me that they work best in the evenings. So they will stay up until 3 a.m. and they will do their work from 11 o'clock at night until 3 a.m. in the morning because that's when they feel that their sort of mind's a little bit more calm. There's no noise around them because everyone else is in bed, presumably. And that's when they get all their work done. And it sort of made me realize, oh, actually, there's someone in front of me who is, very experienced. They're a top player in what they do, and that's how they decide to manage their time. So actually, I should just do what's best for me. And I realized also I like doing stuff later in the afternoon or at evening because I also enjoy the quiet. But for some, such as yourself, 4:30 in the morning seems to be the best time, and that definitely wouldn't be for me. So I think just sort of making sure that you realize you're playing to your strengths. So if you're trying to force yourself to work in a time that doesn't work for you, just don't force it. And I guess that again, that comes back to patience. If you know that you're going to get the work done, be patient with yourself, it will get done, and find a time which works best for you. So in sixth form, for example, it was whenever I had my 3 hours, that's when I would get my work done because I didn't want to have to do it when I go home. But now I've always got work to do. There's never a time when I don't have work to do. So actually, I'd much rather do it in a time where I feel I can put my best towards it rather than trying to force it into an hour or two in the middle of the day when I don't feel up to doing it.
We both, and even thinking about that conversation, we both have different paths, different productivity hours. For Abbie, her best productivity time is in the evening, and that's absolutely fine because that's what works for Abbie. Me, I'm so much more of a morning person. I'm like, get me out of bed, get me to the gym. That is my focal point. I know that I would do a shit workout in the evening compared to a better workout in the morning and I would flourish easier and I get more shit done in the morning to afternoon than I would in the evening. And that works for me. And I think for the listeners out there, find that time that works for you and do it. Don't listen to the outside voices. Don't listen to what anyone is telling you because at the end of the day, it's you, it's your life, and it's the way that you want to live it. It's about investing in yourself and taking the time to do the things that you want to do for you. And that's as simple as it gets. And I
Yeah.
thank Abbie for sharing that because we are two completely different individuals who are doing similar things, but we both work extremely hard, and that is absolutely fine. We both work hard, but we do it at different times, and that is okay. That is perfect because we both still get our stuff done. And I
Yeah.
think for a lot of people, it's hard to hear that because everyone's programmed in a way, especially during school. You've got to go to school at 9, you've got to go to school at and finish at 3, and like that's your structure. But being at uni and having the autonomy that you have and the freedom, that really is key.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I did quite like the structure of school. That's part of the reason why I ended up picking a sixth form over a college. I liked this is when your lessons are going to be, this is when your free time is, and this is what you should be doing every day. I did like that, and I it did take me a lot of time to get used to having sort of the freedom that university gives you. I really didn't like it for a good amount of time. I wished that there was sort of a list of things for me to do rather than just sort of being left to this is the reading you've got and these are the questions that you need to answer. But for someone like me, I was always thinking there must be more that I need to be doing. I need a very clear list, a very clear instruction given to me of what to do. And having a different timetable every single day really confused me as to when or not to work. It did take me a lot of time, but I think, as I said, mentioning, that evening is when I work best. So just working around that rather than trying to force me to do stuff in the morning because I know that it won't work. I'd much rather spend my time doing something else in the morning and then getting round to work in the evening. But yeah, it does take time, I think, especially if you come from a sixth form to university. But as long as you're figuring out what works best, it will make sense eventually. It does click into place.
And on that note, do you think, because I went down the college route and obviously have a different
Oh, okay.
experience of the college structure, do you think you may, re I know some people don't like to live life with regrets, but do you think you regret potentially not going down the college route instead of sixth form route because of university and knowing how university would be?
I don't think so because I think at the time, sixth form is what I needed. I think, you know, now that I'm a bit older and that I'm more calm with myself and I understand how I am, I'm fine at university. I understand the hours are all going to be different and I know when I work best. But at the time, I loved sixth form. It was exactly the structure that I needed. It was exactly the support system that I needed. I had really great teachers that were all there for me and would all give up extra time to be there. But I definitely don't regret it. I don't think I would have survived that time in my life if I was at a college because I would have been left to do, I imagine, left to do whatever I wanted at the time, not given so much structure, not given from what I understand, not as much support, but obviously that's just from the colleges in my area. And I think the only other thing that I guess really shocked me coming from sixth form to university was the level of support given between teachers and tutorial tutors, for example. Obviously, they have their feedback and advice hours, and I absolutely utilize them. They're very helpful. But not being able to just have an hour, for example, free to just go and chat to them, talk about what's worrying you, ask for advice, ask what they did, that's not really there. And I think sometimes it's so hard to try and make a connection with your tutor in that way. And for them obviously to be available for so many students, it's obviously not it's not doable for them, but that definitely did shock me. So I think, sort of realizing that there's other people to turn to. So I've never personally been to them, but I know that there's the counselling offices at Queen Mary, and I've spoken to the DDS team quite a bit. I've spoken to my academic advisor quite a bit. I speak to the careers team all the time. So I think sort of realizing that you can still get that support. It's just not going to be from one individual person. But yeah, I definitely don't regret sixth form. I really enjoyed it.
I truly believe that whatever path you're destined to go on is the path that's right for you.
Yeah,
And if you hadn't have gone on that path, you may not have been in the position that you are now. And I think everyone's path and journey is probably laid out before them that they don't even realize. And like you said, having those tools at sixth form was great then, and not having that sort of transition was so much harder to comprehend because you're kind of thrown into the deep end. You got all these readings, all these lectures, everything's going off, everything's just like crazy all the time. You have no idea how to cope or survive, and you're just thrown into the deep end. But
Yeah.
knowing that there are these individuals, knowing that there's a student advisor, knowing that you have the feedback and advice hours, and knowing that there is the counselling service, which I did use during the second semester last year, they are great tools to use, and you have to just utilize them because no one's going to come for you to go to them. You have to go to them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the careers team I've probably gone to the most, because in my eyes it's there. Why would you not use it? You know? And that could just be me, but I always think if I've got something that I feel needs a little bit of reading over and there's no one else for me to go to, I'm gonna book hours. Like they're there for everybody to use, so absolutely use them. I don't think that anyone should hesitate with trying to use those hours because they're there for a reason. Even if you feel that you didn't get a whole lot from it, I bet you probably did. You just haven't realized in the moment how much you got from it. Because some of the conversations that I had early on in first year, I thought, well, that's common sense. But actually now I realize, oh, okay, well, it might be common sense, but I can still refer back to it when I'm doing an application or doing this, for example. So just using those services and actually realizing that they are there to help. They're not there to just refeed you information. They are there to actually help you in your situation and what you need help with specifically.
Damn, I'm just taken aback as someone who didn't really use the feedback and advice service, hasn't really used the career service. To be honest, I'm just like, get me to the career service because the advice that you've just given to the listeners, the advice you've even given to me, I'm just, oh my God, I need to take notes at this point because it's about the lesson and it's about you may not realize in the moment, but realizing after is everything. It's everything for your journey and it stays with you. Like those moments
Yeah.
have clearly stayed with you throughout your applications. And I feel it's such a hard thing to kind of adjust to because you don't really know how to go into these meetings, you don't really know how to approach them. So for the listeners that may be listening, do you have any advice on how you've approached those sort of meetings?
Yeah, I mean, the careers ones, for example, I have used them with every major application that I've done. So with the Access Akin application, I went to about 3 or 4 different careers appointments. I had one specifically for my CV, I had one for the written application, one for the interview, and then another, but I can't remember what for. And I use them. I email my advisor ahead of time with the documents that I want them to go through because it's a 20-minute appointment. I think, they all appreciate being told beforehand so they have a bit of time to read your documents, understand your position, and understand what you want from that 20 minutes because it's not a lot of time. If you spent 5 to 10 minutes on pleasantries, then you've got 10 minutes to try and figure out what the issue is and how to fix that. So I always email ahead of time with my documents. I let them know in a quite a short email what I want to focus on or what the issue has been, and a bit of background information on what it is that I'm applying to. So, for example, I applied to the Chanel placement, the law in practice placement with Chanel. So I emailed over the information slides that Queen Mary uh, offered us. I sent over my CV and I sent over my application questions. And then in just a quick short email, I said, I'm applying to this. I'd like to look over XYZ. This is the issue that I'm having. And then that's it. And then so as soon as that careers appointment started, that's what we go into. So I think just sort of having a clear plan, an idea of what it is that you want to get out of it, and then just making that known because they don't know what it is that you want from that unless you tell them. And 20 minutes is not a lot of time. So make it clear what you want from that appointment.
Plan, patience is key.
Yeah.
And those two lessons from this entire episode, if you haven't got a plan, you're not going to be patient. If you haven't got patience, the plan's not going to work. And just hearing like they're coming from like everything you've just said is just
Everything.
I'm just like, whoa, because having that plan, but for you especially, just detailing that plan of how you want to approach that session, how you really want to, what you want to get from that session,
Yeah.
what is the main focus for you from that session is everything, because without having that, you're just going to be lost. You're going to be lost, and it's not going to be the best use of your time. And I think time is money, and money is a lot. nowadays as well.
Yeah,
And I did want to speak about money,
yeah.
especially as a home student and obviously having to have a part-time job just to help survive because clearly the maintenance loan isn't actually beneficial to a lot of students. Like, yes, it gives us money, but it doesn't give us enough money. So from me to you, do you actually think the maintenance loan actually reflects the cost of a student?
No, especially if you're staying on your own inside somewhere that you don't know where you are and you're having to basically fend for yourself. I'm very lucky that my parents, you know, have me with them and all I pay for is my own travel. I pay for my obviously all my university things, whether that's books, subscriptions, etc. I pay for all my own personal stuff, and I work as well. But if I didn't have my place at home to stay, the maintenance loan absolutely would not cover what I need to live off of.
I think hearing that from another student is really everything because everyone's like, "Oh, you're just being dramatic. You're in London." It's like, of course you're going to afford it, but the truth is just not a lot of people can, and that we're having to hustle, we're having to get by. What tips or tricks do you think would be valuable for the listeners out there just hearing about what you wish you understood earlier about budgeting or managing finances, especially during first year and second year?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've I've always, I want to say, been pretty good at managing my money, and that's obviously something that I can thank my parents for. They've always um, done very well to teach me that. But for example, my travel costs in first year, I think, were £50 upwards a week. So that adds up, and especially if it's on peak hours. So coming into my second year, I planned my route a completely different way. So it does take me longer, um, but it saves me about £7 a day. And I think just even little things like that, they add up over time. They do. That it might sound silly, but it does. Um, so I think planning your journey or your travel is an important one, especially if it's going to be like us and it's 40 minutes to an hour, or in my case 2 hours. It takes a while. Make sure that you're being time efficient but also money efficient. I think also realizing whether or not you need to buy the textbooks. So for me, it wasn't a big issue. I don't mind reading them online, but I know a lot of people do like to read the physical copy. They like to have it in front of them and highlight it and stuff. So being smart with the way that you're buying books. So buying secondhand ones, buying ones off of students. I'm sure there's probably uh, group chats that offer books and things from previous students at Queen Mary and others that you can always make use of. So I think sort of realizing or having an idea on what you actually want to spend money off of. I know for me as well, like I'll limit myself any treats while I'm at university because the bus was a treat. Sort of, I don't want it to sound like I'm living that frugally, but that is sort of how I make sure that I'm not just spending money off of like quick indulgences. So really sort of understanding what it is that you essentially need to pay for and then how much money you want to put away for the wants and the extras that you want to do.
I think having that budget is everything. And even just hearing
Yeah,
about the way that you approach it with a strategy, you approach it with a plan of, okay, I realize that I'm spending 50 quid last year. How am I going to combat that? How am I going to cut that down? And I've managed to cut it down to less than like taking 7 quid off a day. I think that in itself is an achievement that you should just be proud of. And just hearing about the way that you approach money, hearing about the way that that bus trip is actually the enjoyment, not having to walk that little journey and just actually being able
yeah,
to get the bus and still being able to have the wants and have the nice things that you really value in life. And like you said, I'm pretty much the same in terms of the textbooks. I don't need a physical copy. I can
yeah,
use a digital copy that works absolutely fine. And it's about doing the things that really align for who you are as an individual and who you really want to be and how you want to approach that. And I know for me, in my instance, having a clear budget of needs, wants, and investments is the best way for me. And likewise for
yeah,
you, having that path in your mind works for you. And it all goes back to the start of figuring out what works for you because that's for you.
definitely. I mean, I keep I sort of have a rough idea of how much a month I'm going to spend, and you know that's what I'll keep to. I try not to go over, and obviously my part-time role does give me that extra if there's ever anything that I really want to do or really want to get myself, but that is sort of mine. I like to think of it as, whereas the maintenance loan and the money for uni isn't mine. That's just sort of, it's just there. It's for me to use, but it's not really mine. Whereas the money that I make from my job and the money that I keep for myself, that is mine, you know? So I like to try and keep the two separate. And one day, once the student loan is paid off, you know, then it won't be there anymore and it will be mine. But that's how I try and think of it, as this is how much I have to use of that, but it's not mine. So I shouldn't dip into it all the time because it's actually not there for me to use like that. Whereas my own money, that's fine if I want to use it like that because it's mine. That's how I try and think of it as.
I think that's so perfect. And I know you mentioned about student loan and paying it off, and it's in the news so much right now with people not thinking it's going to be able to be paid off of. Do you think that the truth is that it might not be paid for? Do you think that that is a real possibility now?
I think for a lot of people, yeah, it definitely is. You know, it goes up every year. The length of time that you have to pay it back for goes up quite a lot. Um, but I think if you start planning now how to budget your money and how to save, I don't think it's impossible. The way that I see it as is, obviously, yes, there's going to be a little part of your paycheck that's coming away every month, but actually if you can afford to do a bit more of a bulk payment, then that's when it's actually going to start getting paid off, because otherwise the interest just covers it over and it just adds and adds and adds because the interest is so ridiculously small. So until you're comfortable enough to start making big chunks into that with your down payments, then I think that's the only way it's going to get paid off. So, you know, whether that be from years of saving and putting that towards it, or having a job to do that with, or, you know, if you're qualified, you're becoming a solicitor and you still haven't paid that off, I think making sure that you've got that extra bit each month to actually dig away at that number is the only way it's going to get paid off.
Thank you. Thank you for just that information because I think for a lot of people, nobody really thinks about the future. Nobody's long-term planning. And I know I like to do a lovely long-term 5 year, 10 year, where do I see
Oh,
my
5 years.
finances? But just hearing about you and your story and the way that you approach it as well is really comforting for the listeners, that the value of having a plan, the value of just knowing that I know I'm going to have this amount. I know that the interest is just crazy at the minute, but I know that I have to take these steps in order for me to have more freedom in the future. And it's
Yeah.
about taking restrictions now to have more freedom. And I think on that note, thinking about the two, I think it's the perfect point for us to have a quick, rapid fire round centered on money and how you've kind of gone about it and how you kind of deal with money. So the
Yeah.
first one that I have for you is, what is one non-negotiable budget item that you think actually just keeps you sane?
My sweet treat budget.
Oh, what's included in that? What's in the sweet treat?
Honestly, I anything like I'm a bit of a sweet treat addict. You know, I really have a sweet tooth. I love a little snack. You know, and if there's something in the shop that I go, oh, that does look like I really want to have that, or I really fancy that, I will get it. That's my non-negotiable.
What is the best purchase that you have made under £20 during uni?
Oh, under £20. That's no, I'm trying to think of what is under £20. Oh my gosh. Uh oh, actually, my iPad case. So I
Oh,
I have a laptop, but I primarily work on my iPad, and my iPad case has got a Bluetooth keyboard attached to it, and it's all like magnetic, so then the screen can come off. And it's so compact, and I want to say it was like £15. Because I know a lot of the iPads have like separate keyboards, but actually I really like having it in like, it's basically a mini laptop. But I love it. That I can't think of anything else that's under £20. But I use my iPad every day for personal and academic stuff, and it's so helpful. I love it. So that's my answer.
That is the essence. It's just the case it doesn't need to be expensive, and what works for you suits you so much better. And I think that's
Yeah.
perfect. Are you more of a, I think you kind of already said it, but more of a save every penny or life is short, treat yourself, or are you kind of a bit of both?
I think primarily I'm probably a save every penny person. If I know in my head that I don't need it, I won't buy it. So if I'm not a big clothes person, like a clothes shopper, but if I do go out with my friends and we do a bit of clothes shopping, if I go, no, I have something similar to that, I won't buy it because I don't need it, and that's my sort of mindset for everything money wise. If I don't need it, I won't buy it. So if it's something that I really want, I will. But other than that, I think I'm probably more of a save every penny person.
Oh, that is, I see
What
that.
about
So I don't know. I'm in such of a middle section of my life. I think I love saving, and every single month I'll put money into my stocks and shares ISA. I'll put my money into, saving for my year abroad. But then I'm also like, hold on a minute, I do want a cheeky getaway. So then I'm like,
you?
oh, I just want to go to Prague for a week, so I will just book a trip. And I'm just like, I mean, where's the balance? Like, where is the sort of balance at this point? Because I don't know. So I would say I'm more in the middle, but I do save a lot more than I probably spend anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the right way to be, you know, like I will pay for the odd meal out and I will pay for trips and things, but primarily I'm a save money person.
What would you say is your favorite student meal that you think, you know what, this just hits different?
Oh, student meal. Um there's a Subway right next to Queen Mary, and I eat everything basically. Like I'm not a picky person at all. So I can go to Subway and I can say you can put every single vegetable in my sandwich, and I will eat it. So they're quite cheap as well. Like I want to say for the amount of food that you get in it, especially if you're like me and you get everything, they're so filling. And I mean, if it's got vegetables in it, to me it's healthy. If it's got lettuce in it, and it's so, um, yeah, I think I don't know if that counts as a student meal, but Subway.
We'll count it, we'll count it. Though you're gonna hate me for saying this. I've never, ever, ever had a Subway before in my life. I
No,
just
we'll have to go.
haven't. We
We'll have to
will.
go.
I'm just like, I don't know what's in them. I don't know what it is. I'm just like, I know it's a baguette, and I know they did this
Yeah,
foot long cookie, and that's the only thing I.
yeah, no, there's spaghetti, and then you can pick. Like, it's basically just a sandwich. You know, you pick what meat or no meat you want, and then what kind of sauces and veg and fruits that you want. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like very like student budget, I guess. I mean, I do really like a pot noodle. Um, I like a bit of pot noodle or some soup, pot noodle or soup with a bit of toast. Yeah, that's probably like my low budget student meal, pot noodle or toast and soup.
Oh. And my final question for you would be, do you invest any of your money? And if so, do you have any tips for people that would be investing?
No, I actually don't. And you know what? I really would like to get into it because I I mean, you know, I studied business all the time and we heard about it all the time, but I never actually really on a personal level understood how to do it. I know what it is, I know how it helps people and what the benefits and drawbacks are, but I've never actually understood how to do it on my own. So maybe if the listeners have any tips that they can share, that would be good. But yeah, I do really want to get into it, but at the moment, no.
Thank you for just giving the answers and not even hesitating, because I know that for a lot of people, like struggling financially, it can be hard, but
Yeah.
having the tips that you've just shared can be so vital for someone to change their habits, change the way that they are. And I think it's a sort of representation that is needed, because I know, like we've spoken before briefly, just about how it's so much down our throats that home students don't have that. Like we have to kind of fund a lot of it ourselves. And I think it's a testament just to hear about your story and the representation on that end. And on about representation as well, you were aspiring solicitors brand ambassador at Queen Mary last semester. You're on Access Akin, you're a leap. Why do you think that representation is so key?
Oh, I think it's everything because like I said, you know, I have no connections on a personal level to anyone like in the professional services. From where I am, where I was born, it's we have a very stereotyped sort of stigma of, I come from Essex. There's a show called The Only Way is Essex, and that is very much the stigma that I get. I remember going into London once on a program called K Plus, so it was with the King's College University, and I remember going in there and I spoke to someone and they asked where I was from, and it was like, oh, instantly. And I'd spoken to them the whole time. I don't think I have a particular strong Essex accent, as they like to say. So I think it's everything, because for someone that has had no connections, school was just sort of like the only thing that I thought I'd ever be doing, and I'd end up not really sure with where I wanted to go. I think having that visibility of someone that's come from this background, they've had this struggle, and it's just everything to me. And I'm part of the LGBT as well, so having that representation is important to me, because I still feel that people have their own opinions on that, and obviously I'm not gonna be against them. Everyone's got the right to their own beliefs, but I just think from being from so many different paths and so many different backgrounds, I've always felt like I wouldn't be represented. But actually, from the aspiring solicitors events that I've been to, there is people that represent, there is people that have been there before, and actually they've had it a lot tougher than what we would have, because they would have been in a time that it was a lot harder to get through. But it is very important, and I'm glad to have represented aspiring solicitors. I'm glad that I get the chance to try and share my story, with how difficult things have been. It can be done, and I think people need to realize that even if you might not have the connections now, they will come. I didn't have any before university, but now I feel like I have so many. So it just sort of, I guess, again, is that patience part of it. It will come if that's what you want, and if you're willing to make the effort to reach out to people and see what can be done.
That is so real for so many of us. Like, it's just so pictured, like how it is for so many people that come from like a small town. And I know Essex isn't small, but it's still small in the grand scheme of things to
Yeah,
like
and
London,
yeah,
Birmingham, Manchester, and just also like yourself being a member of the LGBTQ community, and really just knowing that there are all these sort of different things that are kind of like hitting you in the head in a way because of the way that society is, and kind of
yeah,
just breaking that bubble is really just a true power. And like you said, being patient throughout it all, not having a single connection is really just, it makes you more ambitious. It probably fuels
yeah.
your fire. And for you, is there any sort of way that you kind of define ambition based on having to kind of like break out of the sort of like norms of where you're from?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everyone can have ambitions, everyone can have dreams, but if you're not willing to act upon it or make any effort towards it, then there's no reason for you to have that ambition, because it won't come true without a bit of effort. And I'm sure there's a quote in Disney's The Princess and the Frog. I'm sure it is. I used to love that film when I was younger. It's dreams only take you half the way. You have to be willing to put in a bit of hard work. And that's exactly how I see ambition. I could say I want to be a solicitor by, I don't know, I want to get a training contract in my final year. But if I'm not willing to set aside the time to put in those applications, to research, to, connect with people on LinkedIn and ask some questions, it's not going to happen. So while ambitions are great to have, if you're not going to put in that effort, the ambition isn't going to come true. It needs to be realistic, and it needs to be actually sort of lived in. Like, the experience needs to be lived in for you to understand what it's going to take to get there. But other than that, I feel everyone should have ambitions, and if they really are an ambition that you have, there shouldn't be any reason why you wouldn't want to work towards it.
Damn, that quote is just kind of in my mind now. I'm just like, I can't even stop thinking about that quote from that Disney film, and the way that you articulated it and the way that you just explained what ambition is, because I think you've just defined it. You've defined what ambition is, and for the listeners out there, it's just incredible. It's incredible to see. It's incredible to hear. how you've kind of gone about fueling that ambition, the steps that you've taken, and the steps that a lot of people probably should take. Like, you need
Yeah.
to take these lessons, because if you're not going to listen to Abbie's story or Abbie's lessons of how she's gone about it, then I understand, but they are really, really valuable. They are valuable to a career. They are valuable to your future, because if you don't take the steps of going on LinkedIn, reaching out, you're kind of just going to put yourself in a worse position than someone who hasn't done it. So, if there is one final piece of advice that you would want to give to law students, to aspiring law students, to anyone in the world, what would that be?
Hmm. I think apart from the ones we've already mentioned, I think it would probably have to be mm, don't give up, basically. I think it's hard. It is. I think any degree is hard, but I think law is probably one of the most competitive inside and outside of the university. While I have friends that do engineering and they do medicine, physics, things like that, and they may find within the class they're competitive with grades. It is not the same on the outside. And I think law is definitely one of those that the environment that you're in doesn't really change. It is going to feel hard. It is probably going to have some sort of impact on your mental health, but that's what the support systems are for. You know, coming from sixth form or college, it is a bunch of work to get used to. It's a completely different lifestyle. It's a completely different time frame to get things done. Everything's quick turnaround, so it is incredibly difficult. But don't give up. Make use of all the support that you've got. Make use of all of the tools that you can find. All of these different ways that you work. Yeah, just don't give up, because I completely understand how it feels to want to, and there's no use in giving up, because it will probably actually make you feel more defeated in giving up the ambition and the dream that you want than actually having failed to achieve it a few times and then eventually getting there. So have patience, you will get there, and don't give up.
Don't give up. I feel like that is just, we don't hear it enough. We don't hear about the resilience, the encouragement, the discipline that it takes to
Yeah,
have your life the way that you want to have it, but also to get to the place that you want to be. Nobody talks
definitely.
about it. And I think you've just articulated that down to the T of everything that everyone needs to hear. Don't give up, have patience, and you will go far and you will achieve all the things that you want to achieve. And so, the final question that I really want to ask you before we get to the final rapid fire is,
Yeah,
what would the 16-year-old version of you say to yourself now? And what would you want to say to that 16-year-old version of you?
I think what would have 16 been? So it would have just been finished school. So yeah.
Mm.
They probably wouldn't believe that I can do so many different things at the same time. I think that they wouldn't understand how confident I am in myself. I don't think they would understand how calm I can be with myself and how I understand how I am now. Um, yeah, it was a tough time for me at that age, and it was just really difficult. I didn't really understand how or why I was the way I was, what support was available to me. My school wasn't as supportive as my sixth form was, so that was difficult. And I was a lot more, I feel like I'm very outgoing now. I chat to everybody, I'm very open to discussions, but back then, everything would have bothered me. I think we mentioned earlier, sort of feeling like everyone's eyes are on us, or feeling as if I do this a certain way, I'm going to be judged. But now I really don't care. Um, so I guess for them to say, for me, sorry, to say to them, is to just push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And actually, probably most people don't really care whether or not you fail or not. They're focused on themselves, and I think at the end of the day, everybody is, and that's fine. Everybody's going to be focused on what they do, and how they act, how their results are. no one's actually going to be paying that much attention to you at the end of the day. If you fail your exams and someone else does too, they're going to be more worried about them failing their exams instead of what you did, you know? So I'd want them to focus on that. And I'd also want them to realize that it's okay to be how you are. You know, I think I grew up in quite an area where it was very judgy, especially on like LGBT stuff, mental health. It's okay to be the way that I want to be, you know. It's not weird, it's not disgusting, it's not odd. There is other people that feel the same, but maybe they're just not as confident as you are to bring that up. Yeah, so I just would have liked them to realize that they can do things. Actually, they can be confident, it's within them. They just need to sort of forget that other people are watching, because they're actually not. They might be on the surface, but deep down, no one actually cares what you do. No one cares how it feels on the inside for you. No one cares exactly how you present yourself, because it should only matter to you. And the people that care about you, the people that also want to see you do well, will come your way. Everyone else that doesn't, they're not for you. And that's fine. Not everyone will be. You don't need to impress everybody. Not everyone needs to like you. You will find your people and they'll be there for you, you know?
I'm just shell shook because just deeping everything you have just said, that is so true. And I think if the listeners are going to take anything, you just have to listen to that on repeat, because I know I'm going to be listening to that on repeat, because that was so inspirational. Is ignore everybody else, ignore the outside voices, ignore what everyone is telling you, and do it for you. Do
Yeah,
it for that person that is within you. And that is everything. That is the place where you will grow so much, is by being you, being your authentic self, and ignoring everyone else's opinions around you, everyone's opinions on who you like, who you like, sort of see yourself being in the future. Ignore everyone else's opinions, ignore the norms, ignore the
yeah,
societal norms of being in that toxic place that everyone is kind of just doing the same thing that they're always programmed to do, and escaping that and finding your own path is everything. And so, Abbie, thank you so much for sharing that, because that part, oh my God, is so inspirational, that I just hope all the listeners just take that and
I hope
listen
so
to
too.
it so regularly. And like I said, I do want to end it with a few quick
Of
reflection
course.
sort of rapid fires. And so the first one is, what is one thing that you're grateful for right now?
Um, my mum.
Oh, and I think she will be grateful for you
Yes.
as well. Just
She's
hearing
always,
everything.
yeah, she's always been there for me. She's, even if she's not quite understood how I'm feeling, or, you know, how to fix it, she's always been there. So my mum.
Oh, what is one thing that you're excited about this year?
This year, I'm excited to do some more traveling. I got my passport last year. I had my first trip with a friend earlier, later last year, and obviously went away earlier this year as well. So I think more travel I'm excited for.
What is one habit that you think has helped you the most?
Mm, it might sound a bit odd, but I really like video games, and I'd spend a lot of time on it. And while it might sound like it's actually not that helpful, um, if I'm stressed or if I'm really upset or whatever, and I don't actually have anyone at that moment to turn to, I will play games, and it just sort of de-stresses me. It puts me in a different world, you know. It makes me focus on what I need to do. So while it might sound odd, um, I've always played games. I've always had the habit of playing them, and it might sound silly, but they actually do help me.
And I'm glad that they help, because I know that for me, I'm not the same, but I know that if that's the coping mechanism, or that's the mechanism that just helps you get through the
Yeah,
day, it's everything. It's like having those differences is what makes us all unique, and that's
yeah.
like the perfect point. And the penultimate question is, how do you usually start your day?
um I think I usually wake up around 7 o'clock, and then I'll sort myself out in the bathroom, and then I'll go down and make myself breakfast. It's usually some sort of fruit or granola type situation, maybe with a little bit of Nutella on it. And I'll usually have that with some sort of YouTube in the background, YouTube video or music on. Because I'm not a morning person, so I can't wake up and go to the gym like you do. So I have to wake up a little bit first. So that's what I do.
And finally, one word that will describe your current mindset.
Um, I want to say on track, motivated and on track. I know that's not one word.
We'll take it. We'll take it, honestly. Abbie, thank you so much for being on Kalen's Lens. I genuinely mean this from the bottom of my heart, but thank you so much for everything that you've shared, from patience to mindset to even that little sort of story of never giving up on who you are, sharing all the ins and outs of your mental health journey, to growing up in Essex, to figuring out that maybe business and finance was never for you and that this law journey is what is for you and is who you are. And the way that you've approached your journey is everything with intention, with integrity, and with clarity. I'm so thankful for you sharing your story. And if there's one thing that I hope the listeners take away, is that I hope that this conversation made them feel reassured, made them feel a little less alone for their journey, and just
Yeah.
made them patient, and that is everything. So, to the listeners, thank you for listening, and I will see you all next time on Kalen's Lens.